Have you ever just had that feeling that something about reality doesn't quite add up? That there's a kind of glitch in the system? Well, today, we're going to try to hack the source code of the universe itself. We're going to see if we can finally patch the bugs that have puzzled the greatest minds for centuries. Let's dive in. So let's start with a really provocative idea. What if the biggest mystery in all of science, the puzzle of consciousness, isn't actually a puzzle at all? What if the whole problem exists only because we've been asking the completely wrong question from the very beginning?
To see what I mean, we first have to get a handle on what these big, unsolved puzzles really are. You can think of them like glitches in the Matrix, right? They're bugs in the operating system of the cosmos that our current science just can't seem to fix.
Okay, so glitch number one is consciousness itself. Now, to really wrap your head around why it's so weird, the philosopher David Chalmers came up with this brilliant thought experiment, the philosophical zombie. So picture someone you know, maybe a friend or family member. This zombie version of them looks, talks, and acts exactly like they do. I mean, perfectly identical. But on the inside, nothing. There's no feeling, no awareness, no inner world at all. The lights are on, but nobody's home. The very fact that we can even imagine that difference tells us that consciousness isn't just what the brain does, it's something more. And that is the mystery.
And this really gets to the heart of the so-called easy versus hard problems of consciousness. Now, the easy problems aren't actually easy, but they're things we can imagine solving. You know, how does the brain process signals from the eyes? How do we store and retrieve memories? But the hard problem, that's a different beast entirely. It asks, why does any of this processing feel like something from the inside? Why isn't it all just happening in the dark, without this rich inner movie playing for an audience of one?
And then there's this other major glitch, this one from the bizarre world of quantum physics. See, down at the level of fundamental particles, things exist in this weird haze of all possibilities at once. But the very instant a conscious observer like you or me measures it, that whole cloud of possibilities just collapses. It snaps into one single definite reality. So why? Why does the universe seem to wait for us to look before it makes up its mind? It's a question that has completely stumped scientists for 100 years.
Okay, so you've got these two colossal, seemingly unrelated mysteries. Consciousness on one hand and quantum collapse on the other. But what if they're not separate problems at all? What if they are both just symptoms of a single, deep, fundamental mistake we've all been making about how reality even works?
You know, history actually gives us a perfect analogy for this. Back in the 19th century, physicists were absolutely convinced that for light waves to travel through the vacuum of space, they needed some kind of invisible medium to travel in. They called it the luminiferous ether, and they spent decades trying to find it, running every experiment you can imagine, and they all failed. The solution? Well, it came from Einstein, who basically showed that the ether wasn't needed at all. The problem wasn't in the experiments, it was in the assumption. And once they dropped the assumption, the whole mystery just, poof, it vanished.
And here is the absolute key insight. The hard problem of consciousness has the exact same structure as that old ether problem. We've been desperately hunting for some mysterious thing that connects the physical brain to our inner experience. But maybe that thing doesn't exist because we've invented a phantom problem based on a completely faulty premise.
Think about the question we always ask. How does my subjective, private, inner world of thoughts and feelings arise from this objective, physical world out there? But what if that's the mistake? What if that objective world is our modern-day ether? What if the huge mistake is assuming that a God's-eye view of reality, a view from nowhere independent of any observer, even exists in the first place? And this leads us to a truly radical new way of looking at things. It's a paradigm that flips our entire understanding of reality completely on its head. It suggests that subjectivity, our inner experience, isn't the weird thing we need to explain. It's the default setting of the entire cosmos.
So here's the core idea, and it's a big one. There is no objective physical world. Now, hold on. That doesn't mean the world isn't real or that you can just wish things into existence. It means there is no version of reality that exists without a point of view. There's only the world as experienced from somewhere.
So if that's the case, what are the new rules of the game? Well, first, there is no God's eye view. There's no ultimate, complete description of reality that isn't tied to an observer. All that exists are perspectives. So what we call objective reality is really just the overlap. It's the set of facts that different perspectives are forced to agree on
in order to stay consistent with each other.
And this is how the hard problem just dissolves. See, we can stop trying to build a bridge from matter to experience because they were never on opposite shores to begin with. Subjectivity isn't some ghost in the machine, it's what the machine is fundamentally made of. Experience doesn't need to arise from anything. It's the default, it's the starting point, not the mystery we have to solve.
Okay, so if we just try on this new perspective first model, what happens to those unsolvable glitches we started with? Well, this is the really cool part. They don't get solved in the traditional sense. They evaporate. So let's take that first mystery again. What is quantum collapse? Why does looking at a particle seem to force it out of that fuzzy cloud of possibilities into a single concrete state? The solution, in this new model, is breathtakingly simple. There is no collapse. What we call collapse is just the process of two different observer perspectives, say you and an electron, interacting and being forced to synchronize their stories about reality. It's not a weird physical event, it's an information update. It's just agreement. Now, this perspective first idea also helps with another one of those huge cosmic puzzles, the fine-tuning problem. You know, the question of why the basic numbers of our universe, like the strength of gravity, seem to be perfectly, and I mean perfectly dialed in to allow for stars, planets, and us to exist. And again, it turns out we've been asking the question backwards. The laws of physics weren't fine-tuned for us. It's more like this. Any set of laws that contains a logical contradiction simply can't form a stable, coherent reality. The universe we find ourselves in is, by definition, one of the only versions that could pass the ultimate filter, the filter of self-consistency. Our existence isn't some miracle, it's just a consequence of living in a universe that doesn't contradict itself. All of this leads to a pretty stunning revelation, not just about the cosmos, but about our place in it. We set out to be the hacker, but it turns out the hacker is also the hacked. We started this journey thinking of ourselves as these brilliant hackers, trying to reverse engineer reality from the outside. But the ultimate realization is that we're not separate from the code we're looking at. The observer is woven into the fabric of the system being observed. The hacker and the hacked are and always were one. This gives us this incredible, mind-bending idea of a strange loop. Imagine a reality that's fundamentally computational, based on information. Over eons, that system evolves minds, like ours, that are complex enough to actually understand the rules of the system they're in. Then, eventually, those minds become powerful enough to create their own simulated realities. And in doing so, they close the loop. It's a system where reality, through us, learns how to create itself. Okay, I know this is all pretty cosmic, heady stuff, but so what? Why does any of this actually matter for you and me in our daily lives? Well, because this isn't just some abstract theory. You can actually see it as a guide for how to live. If this model is even close to right, it gives us a new mandate for finding meaning. We have a mandate to cooperate because we're all nodes in a network that have to harmonize to create a coherent, shared reality. When there's discord, reality itself is failing. We have a mandate to create because things like art and science aren't just describing the world, they're actively expanding what the world can be. We have a mandate to be moral because ethics is really just the recognition that for the whole system to be coherent, its parts have to be in harmony. And finally, we have a mandate to live in the moment because right here, right now, is the only place where the universe actually writes its own story. So, when you look up at the night sky, don't think of yourself as an insignificant speck of dust in some cold, indifferent void. A better way to see it is this. We are the void itself, finally becoming aware. We are the universe waking up, and the quality of that awakening, well, that's entirely up to us.